8-year-old Emily Harper, her red pigtails bouncing as she darted across the gravel, her laughter sharp and bright like a bell. She wore a denim jacket, a little too big for her small frame, and a woven bracelet on her wrist. Its colorful threads faded from months of wear. It was a gift from her mother, a talisman she never took off. By 12:47 p.m., Emily was gone, vanished, as if the playground itself had swallowed her whole. The school went into lockdown within minutes. Teachers herded children back inside, their faces pale, voices trembling. Parents arrived in waves, clutching their own kids, eyes scanning the crowd for Emily's red hair, her bright green sneakers. Police swarmed the grounds, their radios crackling with urgency. The playground, once a place of innocent chaos, became a grid of suspicion. Every swing, every slide, every patch of grass coned for clues. Nothing, no trace of her backpack, her jacket, or the girl herself. It was as if Emily had dissolved into the autumn air. For weeks, the town of Maplewood was a wound that wouldn't close. Flyers with Emily's school photo, gap-toothed smile, freckles dusting her nose, plastered every lamppost, storefront, and bulletin board. Volunteers scoured the woods behind the school, the creek that wound through the edge of town, the abandoned lots where kids sometimes dared each other to trespass. The Harpers, Emily's parents, became ghosts of themselves. Claire Harper, her mother, sat by the phone, her hands knotted in her lap, waiting for a call that never came. David Harper, her father, walked the streets at night, calling Emily's name until his voice gave out. The town held vigils, lit candles, prayed, but prayers don't bring back missing girls. 17 years passed, and Emily Harper became a name whispered in Maplewood's collective memory. A cautionary tale. Parents told their children, stay close, don't wander. The case went cold, the files buried in a precinct basement, the flyers faded and peeling. Life moved on, as it always does, but the scar remained. Then on a gray November morning in 2025, a janitor at Maplewood Elementary pried open a rusted locker in the school's old gymnasium, a storage space sealed since a renovation. The locker was supposed to be empty, its contents cleared years ago, but there, tucked in the corner, was a small woven bracelet, its colors dulled but unmistakable. A single charm dangled from it, a tiny silver heart, engraved with the initials. The janitor, a man named Carl who'd worked at the school for a decade, felt his stomach lurch. He knew the stories. Everyone in Maplewood did. The police were called within the hour. The bracelet was bagged, catalogued, and sent for analysis. Claire Harper, now in her late 40s, her hair streaked with gray, stood in the precinct holding the evidence bag, her hands trembling. It was Emily's. She'd made it herself, weaving the threads during a rainy summer afternoon, tying the heart charm on with a knot. Claire had helped her tighten. The discovery tore open the wound that had never fully healed. How had the bracelet ended up in a sealed locker? Why now? And where was Emily? Detective Sarah Linden arrived in Maplewood 2 days after the bracelet was found. She was 38, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for cracking cases others had long abandoned. Her transfer from Seattle was recent, a move prompted by her own need to escape ghosts, though hers were personal, not professional. She'd been assigned to cold cases, and Emily Harper's file was the thickest in the stack. Over 600 pages of witness statements, search logs, and dead-end leads. Sarah spread the file across her desk, the faded ink and yellowed paper a testament to years of futility. But the bracelet changed everything. It was a crack in the case, a sliver of light in a room long dark. Sarah started with the school. Maplewood Elementary hadn't changed much in 17 years. The playground was still there, though the equipment was newer, the gravel replaced with soft rubber mats. The gymnasium where the locker had been found was a squat brick building attached to the main school, its interior smelling of dust and old wood polish. The locker itself, number 42, was in a row of 20, all sealed during the 2008 renovation when the gym was repurposed for storage. The school board had ordered the lockers cleared, but no one could confirm if that had actually happened. The janitor, Carl swore he hadn't touched locker 122 until that November morning. It was stuck, he told Sarah, his hands fidgeting. Rusted shut. Took a crowbar to open it. Sarah crouched by the locker, her flashlight sweeping the interior. Scratches marked the inner walls, faint but deliberate, like someone had clawed at the metal. No fingerprints, no DNA, at least not yet. The lab was still processing the bracelet, but early results showed traces of soil and a faint chemical residue, possibly cleaning fluid. Sarah made a note to cross-check the soil against samples from the playground in She didn't expect much. 17 years was a long time for evidence to survive. Her next stop was the Harper's house. Claire answered the door, her eyes hollow, clutching a mug of tea that had long gone cold. David stood behind her, his shoulders stooped, his face etched with lines that hadn't been there in the photos from Sarah sat with them in their living room, the same room where Emily's toys still sat in a box by the fireplace. Claire recounted the day Emily vanished, her voice mechanical, as if she'd told the story so many times it had lost its edges. She was wearing that bracelet, Claire said, her fingers tracing the air where it used to sit on Emily's wrist. She never took it off, never. David was quieter, his gaze fixed on the floor. The police back then. They didn't do enough, he said, his voice low, bitter. They said she probably ran off, an 8-year-old. Can you believe that? Sarah could. She'd seen cases where kids wandered off, got lost, or worse, were taken. But Emily's case didn't fit the profile of a runaway. No history of trouble at home, no signs of distress. Her teachers described her as bright, curious, a little shy but well-liked. The playground had been fenced, monitored by 2 teachers during recess. How does a child vanish in broad daylight with adults watching? Sarah's questions led her to the original witnesses, the 2 teachers on duty that day. Mrs. Evelyn Porter and Mr. Daniel Klein were still in Maplewood. Evelyn, now retired, lived in a small apartment downtown. She was in her 60s, her hands trembling slightly from early Parkinson's. I've gone over that day 1,000 times, she told Sarah, her voice thin. I was watching the kids near the swings. Emily was by the slide, I think. I looked away for a moment. Someone fell, needed help, and when I looked back she was gone. Daniel Klein was harder to track down. He'd left teaching a year after Emily's disappearance, now working as a mechanic at a garage on the edge of town. Sarah found him under a car, his hands black with grease. He was reluctant to talk, his answers clipped. I don't know what happened, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. I was by the fence, keeping an eye on the older kids. Didn't see her leave, didn't see anything. Something about Klein's demeanor, his quick glances, the way he avoided her eyes, set Sarah's instincts on edge. She made a mental note to dig into his background. The 2008 investigation had cleared him, but Sarah didn't trust old reports. People lie, memories and sometimes the truth hides in the cracks. The bracelet became the town's obsession. Local news ran stories about the discovery, rehashing Emily's case with grainy photos and somber voiceovers. Social media buzzed with theories. Some said Emily had been kidnapped, others that she'd fallen into a hidden well or been taken by a drifter passing through. Maplewood's ex-posts were a mix of nostalgia and speculation, with users sharing memories of Emily or posting wild conspiracies about the school. Sarah scrolled through them late at night, her laptop casting a blue glow across her motel room. One post caught her eye. A user named Maplewood Memories claimed to have been a student at the time, saying they'd seen a weird guy near the playground the week before Emily vanished. No one had followed up on it. Sarah sent a message to the account, but it had been inactive for years. She widened her search. The school's records from 2008 were a mess, paper files stuffed in boxes, some water damaged from a leaky basement. But she found a maintenance log that mentioned a delivery truck at the school the morning of Emily's disappearance. The driver, a man named Victor Reese, had signed in at 10:15 a.m. to drop off cafeteria supplies. He'd been questioned briefly in 2008 and cleared, his alibi backed by his employer. Sarah tracked him down. Reese was now in his 50s, living in a trailer park 2 towns over. He remembered the day vaguely, said he'd parked near the playground, unloaded crates and left. Didn't see any kids, he told her, scratching his beard. too busy working. But the log showed Reese's truck was at the school for nearly an hour longer than a simple delivery should take. Sarah pressed him, but he stuck to his story. She left with a nagging feeling, her mind circling back to the scratches in the locker. Could Emily have been hidden somewhere on the school grounds? In a truck? A storage room? The idea felt far-fetched, but she couldn't shake it. Claire Harper called Sarah the next day, her voice urgent. "I remembered something," she said. "Emily's bracelet. It had a loose thread. I was going to fix it, but she wouldn't let me. Said she liked it that way." Sarah checked the lab report. Sure enough, the bracelet had a frayed edge, a single red thread unraveling. It was a small detail, but it confirmed Claire's memory. It also meant the bracelet hadn't been tampered with or planted recently. It had been in that locker for years, undisturbed. Sarah returned to the school, this time with a forensic team. They swept the gymnasium, the playground, the surrounding wood. Ground-penetrating radar found nothing. No hidden compartments, no buried remains. But in the boiler room, tucked behind a rusted pipe, they found a child's hair tie, green with a small daisy charm. Claire identified it immediately. "Emily wore it that day," she whispered, her voice breaking. In her left pigtail. The discovery shifted the case. 2 items, both Emily's, found 17 years apart in places they shouldn't be. Sarah's mind raced. The boiler room was accessible from the gymnasium in 2008. A maintenance door left unlocked during school hours. Someone could have moved Emily through there, away from prying eyes. But who and how had no one noticed? Sarah dug into the school staff from 2008. Besides Evelyn Porter and Daniel Klein, there was a custodian named Harold Webb, who'd worked at Maplewood for 20 years before retiring in. He'd been questioned in the original investigation. His alibi solid. He was cleaning classrooms on the other side of the school during recess. But Sarah found a discrepancy in his time card. On October 17, 2000, an hour before Emily vanished, then clocked back in at 1:15 p.m. No one had followed up on the gap. Harold Webb was 72 now, living in a nursing home 30 miles away. Sarah drove out to see him, the road winding through fields bare from early. He was frail, his hands spotted with age, his eyes cloudy but sharp. "I don't remember much," he said when Sarah showed him Emily's photo. "Lot of kids back then, hard to keep track." She pressed him about the time card. His face tightened, just for a moment. "Must have been a mistake," he said. "I was there all day, cleaning, like always." But his hands shook as he spoke, and Sarah noticed a faint scar on his knuckles, like he'd scraped them against something rough. Metal maybe, like the inside of a locker. She didn't push too hard. Not yet. Instead, she asked about the boiler room. "Ever go in there during recess?" she asked. Harold shrugged. "Sometimes. Had to check the furnace, make sure it was running." His answers were too vague, too practiced. Sarah left the nursing home with a knot in her gut. Harold Webb knew something. She just needed proof. Back in Maplewood, the town was unraveling. The bracelet's discovery had stirred old fears, and parents were pulling their kids from school demanding answers. The local paper ran a front-page story. "Emily Harper case reopened. New evidence sparks hope, dread." Claire and David Harper were hounded by reporters, their grief laid bare for the world to see. Sarah met with them again, promising to follow every lead. "I don't care how long it takes," she told them. "I'll find out what happened." But the leads were the soil on the bracelet matched samples from the playground. But that was no surprise. It was where Emily had last been seen. The chemical residue was trickier. The lab identified it as a mix of industrial cleaner and something else, possibly paint thinner, but the sample was too degraded to be conclusive. Sarah cross-referenced it with cleaning supplies used at the school. In the custodian's logs listed a brand of floor cleaner that matched the profile, but it was common, used in schools across the state. Another dead end. She turned to the students from 2008, now adults in their mid-20s. Most had moved away, but a few still lived in Maplewood. One, Jessica Tate, had been Emily's best friend. Jessica was 25 now, a barista at a coffee shop downtown. She met Sarah at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a latte. "Emily was my shadow," Jessica said, her voice soft, "always following me around, giggling. That day, I was playing tag with the boys. I didn't see her leave the slide." Jessica paused, her eyes distant. There was this one thing though. A week before she disappeared, Emily said something weird. She said someone was watching her, not a kid, an adult. She wouldn't say who. I thought she was just being dramatic, you know. Kids make stuff up. Sarah's pulse quickened. Did you tell the police back then? Jessica shook her head. I didn't think it was important. I was 8. I didn't know. An adult watching Emily. It wasn't much, but it was a thread to pull. Sarah went back to the case file, combing through every adult who'd been near the school that day. Teachers, custodians, delivery drivers, parents. The list was long, and most had been cleared, but one name kept circling in her mind. Harold Webb. His time card gap, his access to the boiler room, his shaky hands. She requested his employment records, his background check, anything that might show a crack in his story. The records took days to arrive, and when they did, Sarah's breath caught. In 2007, a year before Emily's disappearance, Harold had been investigated for loitering near a park in a neighboring town. No charges were filed, but a parent had reported him watching children too closely. His truck parked by the playground for hours. The police had let it go, chalking it up to a misunderstanding. Sarah didn't believe in misunderstandings. She drove back to the nursing home, this time with a warrant for Harold's DNA. He was less cooperative now, his eyes narrowing when she mentioned the bracelet. I don't know anything about that girl, he snapped. You're wasting your time. But his DNA was taken, a swab from his cheek sent to the lab. Sarah didn't expect a match. The bracelet had been too degraded, but she wanted him to know she was watching. The days bled into weeks, and Maplewood grew restless. Claire Harper called Sarah daily, her voice a mix of hope and desperation. Do you think she's still out there? She asked once, her words barely audible. Sarah didn't know how to answer. The statistics weren't kind. Most missing children cases ended in tragedy within hours, but the bracelet, the hair tie, the scratches in the locker, they suggested something else. Not closure, but a story that hadn't ended. Sarah's motel room became a war room, the walls covered with maps, photos and timelines. She pinned a photo of Emily next to one of the bracelet, the heart charm glinting under the lab's lights. She marked the playground, the gymnasium, the boiler room, drawing red lines to connect them. Somewhere in those lines was the truth. One night as rain battered the motel windows, Sarah got a call from the lab. The hair tie had yielded a partial DNA profile, not Emily's, but a male's. It wasn't enough for a full match, but it ruled out Harold Webb. Sarah's heart sank. She'd been so sure, but the DNA gave her another lead. It matched a sample in the national database. A man named Paul Grayson, arrested in 2010 for petty theft. He'd been a substitute teacher in Maplewood in 2008, filling in for a week at the elementary school. The original investigators hadn't flagged him. His time at the school was brief, his record clean at the time. Sarah tracked Grayson down. He was 45 now, living in a rundown apartment in a city 2,000 miles away. She drove there the next morning, her hands tight on the wheel. Grayson opened the door in a stained t-shirt, his eyes bloodshot. What do you want? He asked, his voice rough. I want to talk about Emily Harper, Sarah said, watching his face. His expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the door frame. Never heard of her, he said too quickly. Sarah didn't believe him. She showed him a photo of the bracelet. This was found in a locker at Maplewood Elementary. Your DNA was on a hair tie in the boiler room. Want to explain that? Grayson's face went pale. I don't know anything about a bracelet, he stammered. I was only at that school a few days. I didn't do anything. Sarah pressed him, her voice calm but unyielding. You were there the day she disappeared. You had access to the gymnasium, the boiler room. Where were you between 12:30 and 1 p.m. on October 17? He claimed he was in the teacher's lounge, grading papers, but the lounge was on the opposite side of the school from the playground, and no one had corroborated his presence there. Sarah's gut told her he was lying. She left him with a warning. Don't leave town. We'll be talking again. Back in Maplewood, the town was fracturing. The school board faced protests, parents demanding the gymnasium be torn down, as if it held the answer. Claire and David Harper held a press conference, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. Sarah watched it on the news, her heart aching for them. She was close. She could feel it, but close wasn't enough. She went back to the school, walking the playground at dusk. The swings creaked in the wind, the slide casting a long shadow across the rubber mats. She imagined Emily here, her pigtails bouncing, her bracelet catching the sunlight. What had happened in those few minutes, when no one was watching? Had someone lured her away, hidden? The locker, the hair tie, the scratches. They pointed to the school, to someone with access. But who? Sarah's phone buzzed. It was Jessica Tate, the barista. I remembered something else, she said, her voice shaking. That day, Emily wasn't just by the slide. She was talking to someone, a man. I couldn't see his face. He was by the fence, near the delivery gate. I thought he was a teacher, but now, I'm not sure. Sarah's pulse raced. The delivery gate was 20 feet from the gymnasium's maintenance door, close enough for someone to slip through unnoticed. She thanked Jessica, and hung up, her mind spinning. Paul Grayson, Harold Webb, Victor Reese. One of them knew something, or all of them. She drove to the precinct, pulling Grayson's file again. His substitute teaching records showed he'd been at Maplewood for 3 days. October 15. He'd taught 3rd grade. Emily's class. Sarah's blood went cold. He'd been in the same room as her, hours before she vanished. Why hadn't the original investigators flagged this? She called the lab, pushing for a rush on Grayson's DNA against the bracelet. It was a long shot. The sample was too degraded for a full match. But she needed something, anything to tie him to the scene. While she waited, she dug into Grayson's life after he'd bounced from job to job, never staying anywhere long. A pattern of instability, of running. In 2012 he'd been questioned in a missing person case in another state. A teenage girl, never found. No charges, no evidence. But patterns don't lie. Sarah's phone rang at midnight. It was the lab. The DNA on the bracelet was inconclusive, but they'd found something else. A microscopic fiber, caught in the bracelet's weave. It was synthetic, likely from a jacket or coat, and it didn't match anything in Emily's wardrobe. Sarah requested a comparison with Grayson's belongings from 2008, if they could be found. She also asked for a check against Harold Webb's work uniform, and Victor Reese's delivery jacket. It was a needle in a haystack, but Sarah had built her career on finding needles. The next morning, Sarah met Claire Harper at the playground. Claire wanted to walk the ground where Emily had last been seen, as if it might bring her closer to her daughter. They stood by the slide, the air heavy with frost. She loved this place, Claire said, her voice breaking. She'd climb to the top and wave at me, like she was on top of the world. Sarah listened, her eyes scanning the fence line, the delivery gate, the path to the gymnasium. She imagined Emily here, trusting, unaware. Someone had taken advantage of that. Someone who knew the school, knew the gaps in supervision. Grayson, with his brief stint as a substitute. Webb, with his keys to every room. Reese, with his truck parked too long. The pieces were there, but they didn't fit yet. As they walked back to Claire's car, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was the precinct. They'd found Victor Reese's delivery jacket in storage, kept by his old employer for tax records. The fiber matched. Sarah's heart pounded. She thanked Claire, promised to call with updates, and drove straight to Reese's trailer park. He was outside smoking a cigarette when she pulled up. "You again," he said, his voice flat. Sarah didn't waste time. "We found a fiber from your jacket on Emily Harper's bracelet. Want to tell me how it got there?" Reese's cigarette fell from his fingers, his face draining of color. "I don't know," he stammered. "I was just delivering. I didn't save it." Sarah cut him off. "You're coming with me." At the precinct, Reese lawyered up immediately. His attorney, a tired-looking man in a cheap suit, argued there was no case, just a fiber, circumstantial at best. Sarah didn't care. She had Reese in a room, sweating, his story unraveling. She leaned across the table, her voice low. "You were at the school for an hour. Your jacket fiber was on her bracelet. Start talking, Victor, or this gets worse." Reese's eyes darted to his lawyer, then back to Sarah. "I didn't touch her," he whispered. "I swear. But I saw something that day, something I didn't tell anyone." Sarah leaned closer, her pulse hammering. "What did you see?" Reese swallowed hard. "A man, near the delivery gate. He was talking to a girl, red hair, green sneakers. I thought he was a teacher, but he wasn't. I know that now." "Who was he?" Sarah pressed. Reese shook his head. "I don't know his name, but he had a scar on his hand. A bad one.
across the knuckles. Sarah's mind flashed to Harold Webb, the scar she'd noticed in the nursing home. She kept her face neutral. Anything else? Reese hesitated, then nodded. He was carrying a bag, a black duffel. Looked heavy. He put it in a car, a blue sedan, old model. I didn't think much of it then. I should have said something. Sarah's heart was racing, but she kept her voice steady. Why didn't you? Reese looked down, his hands shaking. I had a record. Small stuff, but enough to make me look bad. I didn't want to get involved. Sarah left the interrogation room, her mind spinning. A scarred hand, a blue sedan, a duffel bag. She called the precinct, requesting a check on Harold Webb's vehicle records. The answer came back within the hour. A 1995 blue Ford Taurus, registered to Webb until Sarah's blood ran cold. She had him, but as she drove to the nursing home, her phone buzzed again. It was the fiber analysis had hit another match. Not just Reese's jacket, but a second sample from a different source. A custodial uniform, standard issue at Maplewood Elementary and the DNA on the hair tie. It wasn't just Grayson. There was a second profile, too degraded to identify, but it suggested two people had been in contact with Emily's belongings. Two people. Sarah gripped the wheel, her mind racing. Harold Webb, Paul Grayson, Victor Reese. Were they working together, covering for each other, or was someone else still out there, watching from the shadows? She pulled into the nursing home parking lot, her heart pounding. Harold Webb was about to have a very bad day.
She'd been here before, just days ago, staring into Harold Webb's cloudy eyes, searching for cracks in his story. Now, she was back, armed with new pieces of the puzzle. Victor Reese's testimony, a fiber match, and a nagging certainty that the truth about Emily Harper's disappearance was buried in the gaps of memory and lies. The bracelet, found in a sealed locker after 17 years, was a whisper from the past. The hair tie, with its dual DNA profiles, was a scream. Sarah was done with whispers. Harold Webb sat in his room, hunched in a faded armchair by a window that framed a barren courtyard, its grass choked with weeds. His hands, spotted with age, rested on his lap. The scar across his knuckles a jagged line that seemed to pulse under Sarah's gaze. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, sharp despite his 72 years, betrayed a flicker of unease. "You again," he said, his voice rough, like gravel under tires. "Thought you'd gotten what you needed." Sarah didn't sit. She stood, arms crossed, her posture a wall of resolve. "Not even close, Harold. Let's try this again." October 17. Emily Harper vanishes during recess. Your time card shows you clocked out at 11:30 a.m. and back in at 1:15 p.m. That's a 45-minute gap right when she disappeared. A fiber from a custodial uniform. Your uniform was on her bracelet, found in a locker sealed since. And Victor Reese saw you by the delivery gate, talking to a girl with red hair. Emily, you want to keep lying, or you want to tell me what happened? Webb's fingers tightened on the armrests, his knuckles whitening, the scar stretching. "Reese is a liar," he muttered. "Drunk half the time. You gonna trust him over me?" "I trust evidence," Sarah said, her voice cutting. "Your car, a blue Ford Taurus, was seen near the school that day. Reese saw you with a duffel bag, talking to Emily. And you've got a history, Harold. Loitering near a park in 2007, watching kids. No charges, but it's a pattern, so talk. What did you do to her?" Webb's eyes darted to the window, his breath shallow. "I didn't touch that girl, not like you're thinking. I was cleaning classrooms like always. That time card, it's a mistake. System was old, messed up all the time." Sarah stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. "You're lying. We found a hair tie in the boiler room. Emily's hair tie, with 2 DNA profiles. One's Paul Grayson, a substitute teacher. The other's unknown, but I'm betting it's yours. We're testing it now, and he's not just pointing at you. He saw a man with a scar on his hand. Same as yours. You were there, Harold. You know something." Webb's hands shook, the chessboard on the table beside him rattling. "I didn't hurt her," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "But I saw something. I didn't say nothing back then because I knew how it'd look. A janitor with a rap sheet around kids. They'd hang me. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she kept her face neutral. What did you see? Webb leaned back, his eyes distant, like he was pulling the memory from a locked vault. A guy, not a teacher, not a parent. He was in the boiler room that morning, messing with the pipes. I caught him when I was checking the furnace. Said he was with maintenance, but he didn't have a badge, no uniform, had a black duffel bag, heavy looking. I told him to get out. He left through the delivery gate, got into a gray van. Sarah's mind snapped to attention. A gray van, not Webb's blue Taurus. Describe him, she said. Tall, skinny, Webb said, his voice steadying. Dark hair, maybe brown, had a scar on his neck right here. He touched the side of his throat, just below his ear, moved quick, like he didn't want to be seen. Why didn't you report it? Sarah asked, her voice sharp. Webb's jaw tightened. He paid me, slipped me $200 to keep quiet. I was behind on bills. Took the money, didn't think much of it. Then the girl went missing, and I couldn't say nothing. Would have looked like I was in on it. Sarah's stomach twisted. A payoff. A stranger in the boiler room, hours before Emily vanished. Why'd you clock out early that day? Webb looked away, his hands clenching. Went to the bar, drank the money away. Didn't want anyone knowing I'd skipped out. Sarah studied him, searching for the lie. His story fit Reese's, at least partially. A man by the gate, a duffel bag, but the scar was wrong. Reese said knuckles, Webb said neck, and the van was gray, not blue. Was Webb deflecting? Or was there another player? She leaned forward, her voice low. You're holding back, Harold. There was a second man, wasn't there? Someone else you saw? Webb's eyes flicked to hers, then away. Just the one, he insisted. I don't know about no second man. Sarah didn't believe him, but she didn't push, not yet. She needed more than his word. We're testing your DNA, she said, standing. If it matches, you're done. Think about that. She left him staring out the window, his hands trembling, the scar on his knuckles a silent accusation. Back at the precinct, Sarah spread the case file across her desk. The pages a map of dead ends and half-truths. The bracelet, the hair tie, the fibers. They all pointed to the school, to that day. 2 men who were there. Victor Reese, the delivery driver, with his jacket fiber on the bracelet. Paul Grayson, the substitute teacher, with his DNA on the hair tie. Harold Webb, the custodian, with his time card gap and suspicious payoff. And now, a mystery man with a scar on his neck, driving a gray van. Sarah's head throbbed, but she didn't stop. She pulled vehicle records from Maplewood 2008, hundreds of gray vans. No clear link to the school. She cross-referenced Grayson's history. His red pickup didn't match, but his DNA on the hair tie wasn't a coincidence. She called the lab, pushing for a rush on Webb's DNA, and a retest of the hair tie's second profile. The technician sighed, but promised results by morning. Sarah's next move was Reese. He was still in custody, his lawyer stalling on bail, his face a mask of exhaustion when she entered the interrogation room. You didn't tell me everything, she said, sliding into the chair across from him. You saw a man with a scar on his hand by the delivery gate, talking to Emily. Webb saw a man with a scar on his neck, driving a gray van. Same guy, or someone else? Reese's eyes widened, his hands fidgeting with a paper cup. I don't know his name, he said, his voice shaky. I told you, I saw him by the gate, talking to the girl. I thought he was a teacher. I didn't see no van. Sarah leaned forward, her voice hard. Your jacket fiber was on her bracelet. Victor, you were closer to her than you're saying. What happened? Reese's lawyer started to object, but Reese waved him off, his face crumpling. I didn't hurt her. I swear, I was unloading crates by the gate. Emily, she came over, asked what I was doing. She was a curious kid, always asking questions. I let her look in the truck, showed her the boxes. That's all. Then I saw the guy with the scar. He called her over, and she went. I didn't think nothing of it until she was gone. Sarah's pulse raced. You let her look in your truck? Was anyone else there? Reese shook his head, his eyes wet. Just me. My partner was sick that day. I was alone. Sarah made a note to verify his partner's absence. If Reese was alone, it gave him opportunity, maybe motive. But his story about the scarred man aligned with Webb's, at least in part. 2 witnesses, 2 scars, 2 vehicles. She pressed harder. What did he look like? The man by the gate. Reese swallowed, his hands trembling. Tall, skinny, wore a cap, kept his head down. I saw the scar when he reached out to her. Didn't get a good look at his face. Sarah's mind churned. A cap, a scar, a duffel bag. It matched Webb's description, but the scar's location didn't. She left Reese with his lawyer, her thoughts spiraling. Was there one man, misremembered, after 17 years, or 2, working together? And where did Grayson fit? Sarah drove to her motel, the rain slashing against her windshield, blurring the world outside. Her room was a war zone of papers and coffee cups, the walls pinned with maps and timelines. Emily's school photo stared back at her, those freckles and gap-toothed smile a constant reminder of what was at stake. Sarah traced the red lines on her map: playground to delivery gate, gate to gymnasium, gymnasium to boiler room, the bracelet in the locker, the hair tie behind the pipe. The scratches inside the locker haunted her, faint, desperate, like a child's last plea. Had Emily been hidden there, alive for even a moment? Or was the locker a decoy, a place to stash evidence? Her phone buzzed. It was Claire Harper, her voice raw with hope and dread. Any news? She asked. The words a ritual by now. We're closing in, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. 2 suspects, Victor Reese and Harold Webb. Evidence tying them to the scene. We're testing DNA. I'll call you tomorrow. Claire's breath hitched. Do you think, is she still out there? Sarah closed her eyes, the weight of the question crushing. I don't know, she said softly, but I'm not stopping until I do. She hung up, her hands shaking. The statistics were brutal. Most missing children didn't survive the first 24 hours, but the bracelet, the hair tie, the fibers, they suggested something else, a story that hadn't ended. Sarah opened her laptop, scrolling through X-posts about the case. Maplewood was alive with theories, some wild, some chillingly plausible. One user, a Maplewood Truth, claimed to have seen a gray van near the school in 2008, parked by the woods. No one had followed up on it then. Sarah messaged the account, but it was dormant, the user gone silent years ago. The lab results came at dawn. Webb's DNA didn't match the hair tie's second profile, but Grayson's was confirmed. A 99.9% match. The second profile was too degraded for identification, but it was male, distinct from Grayson. The custodial uniform fiber was a match for Maplewood's 2008 stock, but it could have belonged to any of the 5 custodians on staff, not just Webb. The jacket fiber from Reese was definitive, placing him with Emily at the gate. Sarah's head throbbed. 3 men, 3 pieces of evidence, no clear picture. She turned to Grayson. He'd vanished from his apartment, the door left open, a sandwich rotting on the counter. Sarah's team swept the place, finding a box of clothes from 2008, including a dark blue synthetic jacket. Fibers were sent to the lab, but Sarah didn't wait. She issued an APB, her instincts screaming he was running. While the team searched, she dug into Grayson's past. His 2010 theft arrest was the tip of the iceberg. In 2009, he'd been questioned in a stalking case in Ohio. A woman reported him lingering near a school, watching kids. No charges, but the pattern was there. In 2008, he'd subbed at Maplewood for 3 days, October 15 to 17, teaching Emily's class. He'd had access to the playground, the gymnasium, the boiler room. His DNA on the hair tie wasn't a fluke. The APB paid off by noon. Grayson was spotted at a gas station 60 miles away, buying a burner phone with cash. Sarah drove out with 2 officers, her heart pounding. They found him in a diner, hunched over a coffee, his eyes flicking to the door like a trapped animal. Paul Grayson, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. You're a hard man to find. He didn't run, didn't fight. His face was blank,
his hands steady on the mug. I didn't do anything, he said, his voice flat. Your DNA's on Emily Harper's hair tie, found in the boiler room, Sarah said, watching his eyes. You were her teacher that day. You were at the delivery gate. Explain. Grayson's grip tightened, but his face stayed calm. I was subbing. Kids leave stuff everywhere. Hair ties, pencils, whatever. Doesn't mean I touched her. Then why'd you run? Sarah asked, her voice sharp. I don't like cops, he said, his eyes flicking to the window. Never. Sarah leaned forward, her voice low, unyielding. You saw her at the gate, didn't you? With Victor Reese. You talked to her. You took her. Grayson's face twisted, a flash of anger breaking through. I didn't take nobody. I saw her. Yeah, she was by the gate, talking to the delivery guy. I told her to get back to the playground. That's it. Sarah's blood went cold. You saw her with Reese? Grayson nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, and someone else. A guy I didn't know by the fence. He was watching her, kept his head down, wore a cap. I didn't like the look of him, but I had a class to teach. I didn't think. He trailed off, his eyes dropping. Describe him, Sarah said, her voice urgent. Didn't get a good look, Grayson said. Tall, skinny, maybe dark hair. Got into a gray van parked by the gate. Sarah's mind spun. Another gray van, another scarred man. She pressed him. You were in the boiler room, weren't you? Your DNA's on her hair tie. Grayson's eyes widened, a crack in his calm. I was never in the boiler room. I don't know how my DNA got there. Maybe she dropped the hair tie in class and someone moved it. Sarah didn't believe him, but she didn't push. She brought him in, his hands cuffed, his lawyer already yelling about false arrest. At the precinct she laid out the evidence. Grayson's DNA, Reese's fiber, Webb's time card gap, the gray van. Grayson stuck to his story. He saw Emily, saw Reese, saw a stranger, but didn't touch her. Sarah needed more. The next morning, a call came from Evelyn Porter, the retired teacher from her voice trembled over the phone. I remembered something, she said. It's probably nothing, but that day, I saw a gray van by the delivery gate. I thought it was a parent picking up a kid early. It was there a long time, and I didn't see anyone get in or out. Sarah's heart raced. Did you see the driver? No, Evelyn said, but there was a logo on the side, something about plumbing or heating. I can't remember exactly. Sarah thanked her and hung up, her mind whirling. A logo. She pulled business records from Maplewood, 2008. It took an hour, but she found it. Maplewood Plumbing and Heating, owned by Robert Klein, father of Daniel Klein, the teacher on playground duty that day. Daniel had been cleared in 2008, his alibi solid. He was watching the older kids by the fence, but his father's van parked by the gate. That was no coincidence. She drove to Daniel Klein's garage, her hands tight on the wheel. He was under a car, his hands black with grease, just like before. Detective, he said, sliding out, his tone wary. What now? Your father's company, Sarah said, her voice steady. Maplewood Plumbing and Heating. He had a gray van in 2008, didn't he? Daniel's face froze, his hands pausing on the rag he was wiping them with. Yeah. So it was parked by the delivery gate the day Emily Harper disappeared, Sarah said. Care to explain? Daniel's eyes flicked to the side, his jaw tightening. My dad was always at the school fixing pipes, checking the boiler. That's his job. Was he there that day? Sarah asked. Daniel hesitated, his hands clenching the rag. I don't know. I was teaching. Ask him. Sarah drove to Robert Klein's house, a small weathered ranch on the edge of town. He was in his garage, surrounded by tools and rusted plumbing parts, his wiry frame bent over a workbench. His hair was gray now, but dark strands lingered, and a faint scar ran along the side of his neck, just below his collar. Sarah's pulse spiked. Mr. Klein, she said, stepping into the garage. I need to talk about October 17th. You were at Maplewood Elementary, weren't you? Robert's hands stilled on a wrench, his eyes narrowing. I was at a lot of schools back then, hard to keep track. Your van was parked by the delivery gate, Sarah said. A witness saw it. You were in the boiler room that morning, talking to Harold Webb. He says you paid him to keep quiet. Robert's face hardened. but his hands shook. Webb's a liar. I wasn't there. Sarah stepped closer, her voice low. We found Emily Harper's hair tie in that boiler room. 2 DNA profiles. One's Paul Grace, the other's unknown. But I'm betting it's yours. Your van's fibers match the bracelet. You want to keep lying or you want to tell me what happened? Robert's eyes flashed with anger, his scar stark against his flushed skin. You got nothing on me, he said. No proof, no case. Sarah smiled, cold and sharp. We'll see about that. She left with a warrant for his DNA and a sample of his van's carpet fibers. The lab worked overnight, and by morning the results were in. Robert Klein's DNA matched the second profile on the hair tie. His van's carpet fibers matched the bracelet. Sarah had her man. She brought Robert in, his son Daniel watching from the garage, his face pale. In the interrogation room, Robert sat with his arms crossed, his scar a silent taunt. I didn't touch that girl, he said, his voice steady. You're fishing. Your DNA's on her hair tie, Sarah said, her voice unyielding. Your van's fibers are on her bracelet. You were in the boiler room, and you paid Webb to stay quiet. You took Emily Harper. Robert's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Sarah leaned forward, her voice relentless. We have witnesses. Victor Reese saw you by the gate, talking to her. Paul Grayson saw you too. Your own son was on playground duty, and he didn't mention your van. Why's that, Robert? Was he covering for you? Robert's eyes flat. Leave my boy out of this. Then talk, Sarah said. Where's Emily? What did you do with her? Robert leaned back, his shoulders slumping, his hands trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said, his voice low. It wasn't planned. Sarah's heart's. What wasn't planned? Robert looked at the table, his voice breaking. She was in the boiler room. I don't know how she got there. She must have followed me. I was fixing a pipe, and she was just there, asking questions. I told her to leave, but she wouldn't. I grabbed her arm, just to scare her, make her go. She dropped her hair tie. I didn't mean to hurt her. Sarah's blood ran cold. What happened next? Robert's voice cracked. She ran out the maintenance door toward the gate. I followed, tried to stop her. That's when I saw Grace. He was by the fence, watching. I thought he was just a teacher, but he looked wrong. I yelled at him to get lost. He took off in his truck. I went back to my van, and Emily was gone. Sarah stared at him, her mind racing. You're saying Grayson took her? Robert nodded, his eyes distant. I didn't see it, but, yeah, I think he did. I put her bracelet in the locker later, thought it'd keep the cops off me. I didn't know what else to do. Sarah's stomach churned. Robert's story explained the hair tie, the fibers, the payoff, but it didn't explain Emily. She leaned forward, her voice sharp. You're lying. You took her. You and Grayson. Robert shook his head, his voice rising. I didn't. I swear I didn't touch her after that. I looked for her, drove around, but she was gone. Grayson. He's the one you want. Sarah brought Grayson back in, her head spinning. 2 men, 2 stories, both pointing fingers. Grayson stuck to his claim. He saw Emily with Reese, saw Robert by the gate, but didn't take her. Robert claimed Grayson was the abductor, but his own actions, hiding the bracelet, paying off Webb, screamed guilt. Sarah went back to the evidence. The scratches in the locker, faint but deliberate, suggested a struggle. The soil on the bracelet matched the playground, but traces of gravel suggested it had been moved. The blood on the hair tie, male, not Emily's, was a new lead, a trace so faint it had been missed initially. She called the lab, pushing for a deeper analysis. The blood matched the second DNA profile, Robert Klein's, but it was too degraded for a definitive match to the skull later found. Sarah's mind raced. 2 men, 2 sets of DNA, 2 fibers. She needed more than circumstantial evidence. She needed Emily. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, an ex-post, flagged by a junior officer. A user, quarry watcher, claimed to have seen a gray van near an abandoned quarry 10 miles from Maplewood in October 2008, the day after Emily Van. The user, now in their 50s, had been hiking and noticed the van parked by a dirt road. Its driver, a tall, skinny man with a cap, digging in the brush. Sarah messaged the user, who responded within hours, confirming the van had a plumbing logo, Maplewood Plumbing and Heat. Sarah drove to the quarry with a forensic team, her heart in her throat. The site was overgrown, its edges jagged with rusted machinery and crumbling stone. Ground-penetrating radar scanned the area, picking up a small hollow space beneath the dirt. They dug. Sarah's hands clenched, her breath shallow. At dusk they found her, a small skeleton curled in a shallow grave, wrapped in a denim jacket. A woven bracelet, faded but intact, circled the tiny wrist. A silver heart charm dangled from it, engraved with Claire Harper identified it the next day, collapsing in David's arms, her sobs echoing through the morgue. The coroner confirmed it was Emily, dead within hours of her disappearance. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull. The soil matched the bracelet. The jacket matched Reese's fiber. The blood on the hair tie matched a trace on the skull, tying Robert Klein to the body. Sarah arrested Robert Klein and Paul Grayson, their stories crumbling under the weight of evidence. Robert's DNA and van fibers placed him with Emily's body. Grayson's DNA on the hair tie tied him to the boiler room. Victor Reese was charged as an accessory for withholding information, his jacket fiber placing him at the gate. Harold Webb faced charges for taking the bribe, his silence enabling the crime. At trial the truth emerged in charge. Robert admitted to grabbing Emily in the boiler room, panicking when she ran. He claimed he chased her to the gate, where Grayson was waiting. Grayson confessed to watching her, but denied touching her, insisting Robert took her in his van. Reese testified about seeing both men near the gate, his own interaction with Emily a fleeting moment of curiosity. The jury pieced it together. Robert and Grayson, working together, had taken Emily, hidden her in the van, and killed her in a panic when she fought back. The locker was a desperate attempt to hide the bracelet, the hair tie left behind in their rush. Both men were convicted of murder, sentenced to life without parole. Reese got 5 years for obstruction. Webb died before his trial, his heart failing in the nursing home. Maplewood buried Emily under a maple tree, her grave small but crowded with flowers. Claire and David stood by it, clutching the bracelet, their grief a weight no verdict could lift. Sarah watched from a distance, her heart heavy. She'd found Emily, but the cost was a town fractured, a family broken, and a truth that left more questions than answers. As she walked away, the leaves crunched underfoot, the air cold with the promise of winter, a reminder of the day Emily vanished, 17 years ago.